Let's go.
Hello, everybody. My name is Raheem Jasani, and I'm the host of The Unfortunate Truth. And today with me, I have Mr. Rishi Kumar, a candidate for California's Congressional District 18. So before we get started, I want to talk about who you are and why you're running for Congress.
Raheem, thank you so much for inviting me to your podcast, and it's a pleasure to chat with you. And we'll talk about issues pertaining to politics and from all different spectrums. So it's going to be a really good conversation. But let me start off by telling you a little bit about myself. You know, I'm a high-tech geek. I look like one, but here in Silicon Valley, all the geeks are rock stars. And, essentially, I never thought myself as fitting in the world of politics. In fact, when I first thought about running, people said, well, you don't look like a politician, you look like more like a coder and a programmer. And I certainly pride myself on that, and that's my heritage. That's my culture. That's my tradition. And, I think I could potentially be the very first congressman in the United States Congress that can write lines of code. And this is the reason why we succeed here. I mean, this is, when you look at what happens here in Silicon Valley, it's a very special brand of innovation that is happening. The best of brains from all parts of the world flock here because this is the innovation economy, and they're applying their work ethics to make it better, to make the world better. We are the 19th largest economy. And what happened to me, Raheem, was working for IBM. I realized that someone like me from the world of tech, we have a very unique insight in terms of problem solving. And I realized that, perhaps I can do things better. And sometimes when I would see a problem, I would look around me like, oh, who's going to step up? And after some time, I realized that it's really me who has to step up. And that was a aha moment for me because I started engaging in the community. And true story, Raheem, when I first started doing this, my wife said, I don't know what you're trying to do. Come on, come back home and look after the kids, But when I applied for the planning commission in my city, my wife said, oh, you'll make a fool out of yourself. That's the nature of what was going on, right? So here we are running for Congress, and it's a complete improbable story that I never, ever even dreamt of in my life. And I picked up my bags, 2 bags, and I left India to arrive here for graduate school education to study mechanical engineering at the University of Connecticut,
How old are you at this time?
I'm just 28. I've stopped time and it not gone past.
So at that time, and when you came here from India, how old were you?
I was 22,
22.
And, essentially what I realized was that becoming an activist where you're trying to solve problems, you're taking on the big challenges, it was sparking a deep joy within me. So this is the reason why we are running for Congress. We ran for city council in the city of Saratoga. In 2018, we got reelected with the most votes in the 60 years election history of Saratoga. And Saratoga is only 10% Indian American. So technically I don't have a base. But when you're applying your zeal to solve problems and you are demonstrating to the community that, hey, look at these challenges, we delivered results. We got lots of, I call them love letters from the residents of Saratoga that I've lived here for 40 years, I've lived here for 50 years. I haven't ever seen a council member like you. And then the tech community started calling out that, hey, Rishi, you should take the next leap of faith. You should go run for higher office. So here we are running, Raheem, and we're going to make a win. We're going to make a win out of this.
Hopefully. So I explained this to the audience. The audience obviously knows about this, but the topic for this week is local elections and the importance of them, right? A lot of people at least are focused so much on the national election and don't understand, the fact that, congressional candidates such as yourself, campaigning is tiring, right? It's so how, how is, I know you were a council member, right? So you have some campaign experience there, but like, this is a whole different platform. So how has campaigning been, it's like, is it fatiguing or does it come naturally to you? Like, just like that, especially, challenging, as you said, only 10% of your residents are Indian Americans. How do you even create that base where it's like that you can, create that trust with your electorate?
So, I think again, let's talk about Silicon Valley. It's a very, very special brand of people who arrive here. I call it a DNA pool, which is very, very special, because they it stems from hard work. It stems from the fact that we really want to apply our intellect into this universe and make things better. Whether we are working in the world of tech or anything else at all. The what I notice is just some phenomenal minds who arrive here. Like-minded folks, and what we truly embrace and like is the fact that somebody is able to impact problems and solutions. And what I say is, in the world of politics, you can game the system for decades and you can survive and keep getting reelected again and again. But in the world of tech, you won't survive 6 months if you're trying to game the system. People will see through you in a nanosecond and you're out. So the zeal for getting things done is what I've learned, living here in Silicon Valley. And so campaign work is very, very hard work. It's not for everybody. So, when you look at, I call it a tempering process. Before I ran for city council in my city, I had actually run 3 different election campaigns myself because, I used to enjoy that, helping people out, but more importantly, creating a process and then figuring out, how you can get the support of people, how you can run a field campaign, all that kind of stuff, right? I call it like a cookie cutter approach. You don't try to do one thing and then try to do something else. You try to create a process and then it becomes very easy, which is the reason why we have succeeded with all the campaign work. Like I'll give you 2014. When I ran for the very first time, people didn't know who I was in the city of Saratoga. We had done some community work as an activist, but we were still trying to establish the name ID, as they say. And when the election was all done, people came out and said that, oh, Rishi, we didn't really know who you were. We didn't support you. But I can tell you this, that, oh my God, what a campaign you ran. And, this is what we believe in. We have to engage with the people. We have to understand the people, which is why we have gone and walked in every single city. There are 31 cities, if for all practical purposes, of different scales and sizes here in Silicon Valley, cutting across 3 different counties. If I drive end to end from one part to the next, it'll take me like hour and a half, if not more. And so it's a fairly well spread out district because the density of population is pretty low. It's the second most affluent congressional district in all of the United States after Virginia's District 10. So the folks here, we took the time to get to know them because people have different aspirations, different challenges, different ideas. And this is what campaign work is about. So you know what, Rahim? We never get tired of that because we're having incredible conversations with people. And so it's not everybody's cup of tea. For me, it's never a dull moment. It's like a 7 a.m. to 1 a.m. schedule is what we have. But it keeps me very happy, engaged. And we are running fast forward with a mission to help a lot of people in Silicon Valley solve the big challenges like housing, transportation, healthcare. So we are giving it all we can to win this.
That's fair. That's a good response. But then even with this, you're obviously very passionate about what you believe in, and you really think you can make change in the House of Representatives. But then how challenging has it been to convince people of your vision, right? Because your opponent's vision, right? Because you're California, because in Silicon Valley, at least California, it works a little differently as it does in Florida. In Florida, at least, could you talk a little bit more about that, where it's like Democrat, Republican, they go against each other, but it's a little different how it is where you are. So explain that. And then how does it, you have to essentially go against someone with the similar values as you to an extent. So how's that?
Well, so we are challenging Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, who's been there in Congress this is the 28th year.
Oh my God.
And Congressman Anna Eshoo chairs the House Health Subcommittee. And Rahim, I don't know if you have seen a pattern that many of these chairs of different committees, what's happening to them. What happened to Congressman Elliot Engel on the hands of Jamal Bowman? There's a pattern playing out where people are like, oh my God, we see what's happening with the COVID-19 situation. We see the Black Lives Matter. And America is getting a message loud and clear that it's time for change. We cannot have the old establishment guards just sitting and dominating a spot without really addressing the type of challenges. I'll give you an example of that. It's very easy for me to challenge Congresswoman Anna Eshoo because there are lots of issues with Congresswoman Eshoo that we have identified. Let me just turn off Slack. We have a bunch of interns, and they are very, very busy.
Yeah, I have that too for my interns. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not that bad because when you look at the issues, when you break it down, we are clearly differentiating ourselves in terms of where we stand on this value system, and we have defined a clear-cut messaging that is appealing to the people, and this is the reason why we're going to win this race. Now, it's hard to convince people, and I call it like pulling teeth, because we are pulling teeth from the Democratic Party voters. And this is what we did in the primary election because there were a couple of Republicans running. This California has a top two system that a lot of folks in the United States may not know of.
Yeah,
That
that's what I was. Yeah.
the top two vote count end up going to the primaries. So we are the very first Democratic challenger that has actually made it past the primary election, and we are challenging another Democrat. So seemingly we have similar values, but actually not, because my values stems from a progressive background. I believe in, for example, Medicare for all, and Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, as the chair of the House Health Subcommittee, is the number one recipient of pharma money in the United States Congress. Number two is, by the way, Kevin McCarthy from the Republican Party. And Congressman Anna Eshoo has passed legislation that has increased the price of healthcare. Look, I like her 28 years of service. She's been there. And, but I think it's time for change because the value system has to be about the people, and which is what is wrong with the politics in this country, which is the reason why we are resonating with people, and we're going to win this race, Rahim.
That's another fair response. I didn't know all the system. I knew who she was, of course, because she in Congress 23 years. I didn't know the fact that, she was a part of the rising of the healthcare prices, at least. But again, right, you are, I don't want to say an outsider, but I can say you are someone who, at least unlike other congressional candidates, doesn't have the political experience. But as you said, you were an IT guy, right? You solve complex problems, you code. And so do you think that gives you at least an advantage per se, or something that gives you a different insight where you can solve more complex problems than your opponent or than other candidates or other politicians with experience can?
Yeah. So I think Rahim. So working for IBM or working for Cisco, we have a keen insight in terms of how you address problems. And as a high-tech executive, managing teams where you are actually leading and addressing different challenges in the world of tech. Right. So working for like an energy company or working for a data management company, working for a big data company where you're leading, marketing teams or you're leading business teams to essentially address these types of challenges that we see in the world of tech. You have a different modus operandi in terms of how you are thinking. And this is what America needs, because the reason why we succeeded in the city of Saratoga is because of my ability to address the type of challenges. So let me give you an example. So, we have burglaries in the city of Saratoga. And for a city with about 12,000 homes, and the median price is probably about $2.5 million, it's a fairly affluent community. One burglary is one too many. And we went from like 69 burglaries to 130 burglaries. From 2012 to 2016. And I said, look, we need to do something about it. And somebody said, oh, Rishi, you'll drop the price of real estate in Saratoga if you talk about burglaries. But, our motivation is to solve problems. And we don't sometimes listen to bad advice. We don't like to listen to bad advice for sure, because that's what we do in the world of tech. So I started having neighborhood meetings, talking about safety, bringing the community together. And we built a framework for neighbors to connect, communicate, and collaborate. And we rolled out neighborhood watch programs. Before we got started, we had 3, it became 70. And our burglaries dropped by 47%, the largest drop compared to any other Silicon Valley city. Something else we did, this is the unique insight of somebody from the world of tech. When you have a problem, you have to understand how to solve them, right? So we have a water company, the San Jose Water Company, that was increasing water rates. And their profits went from $22 million to $52 million in a drought. And I said, look, we have to push back. And then once again, I was told that, oh, Rishi, we don't have jurisdiction over San Jose Water Company. It's only PUC that has that. I'm like, what do I know? You know, I'm a high-tech geek. Let's figure out what I can do. So I started protesting. I put up a thing on my website and people would copy paste and send that through. And boom, we rejected. I still remember that moment. Advice letter 501. I was jumping and high-fiving in air. I was like, oh my God, it did it. I didn't realize I could do it. Then you know what we did, Rahim? We rolled out a water app. A water app, it's called Silicon Valley Water. You can go look it up on the App Store. You can download that app and we made protest a lot more easier. So instead of spending 2 minutes sending out that protest email, we turned it into 15 seconds to send out a protest email. This is how you get stuff done. That's the unique insight of someone like me from the world of tech can bring to Congress. And that's the reason why we're running.
That's amazing. I didn't, you're right. It's a whole, especially now, right? It's a whole different outlook at what it means to be, a politician of who gets the job done. And I like that insight. It's interesting. But then you've touched on who you are a little bit, right? And why you're running. But I want to give you a couple scenarios, right? Again, this is in Congress. If you don't mind, I'm going to give you a couple scenarios in which a lot of people have had to go through in the past, whether as they're in Congress. And so one scenario I have for you is that if you're in Congress, like if elected, what's the one thing that you're the most passionate about for your district residents? That, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I know there are a lot of things you're focused on, but the one thing where it's like, this is it. I'm tired of this. I'm going to put this legislation on the first day in office. You have the floor.
So what's on top of your mind, Rahim? You tell me.
I tell you?
Yeah, you tell me. I'll tell you because you have the answer. You have my answer. Tell me.
For me, I mean,
yeah. This is like a magic show. You got the answer. You're going to tell me the answer.
Okay, for me at least, right? Maybe you have different priorities. For me, I think it's fixing infrastructure on our education system and the curriculum when it comes to that. I'm young, obviously, and education is the most important thing for me, at least now, right? I grew up in a school that barely, had textbooks, ripped up textbooks, underpaid teachers, right? Curriculum that should have been taught to broader, more schools, right? We look at problems, as I mentioned before we started to record this, right? Problems such as, climate change or systematic oppression. Nobody knows about it. It's because we don't teach it in schools.
Yeah.
I think we have to talk about our future generation, right? Your kids and older, my kids. So at least that's what it is for me. If I was in your position, I would do that.
But you're on the right track, Rahim. I want you to elevate your thought process. Think a little higher. What are we dealing with right now?
Corruption.
Think, elevate it a little bit more. What are we dealing with right now? What's going on with this world?
Coronavirus?
Exactly. And I think we are in a situation, we'll be dealing with the post-COVID-19 world and the aftermath of all these different issues over the next few years. This is just a start, unfortunately. This economy is going to slide downhill and we'll see a lot of different challenges emerge. So the one issue that we're going to address is with respect to the world of coronavirus. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned education. Mm-hmm. And we are going to address the challenges of education from the lens of coronavirus, because every problem that we will see in this world, you talked about infrastructure. Yes, that too. So let me explain what we are talking about, right? Mm-hmm. So we have actually written a policy on the pandemic, which is on our website. Mm-hmm. What we are talking about is this, we were severely exposed with how America was unable to handle the challenges of the pandemic. And some third world countries actually performed so much better than what we did here in America. We are the biggest, largest, most powerful nation in the world. And we literally fell flat on our knees with this. So let's talk about the economy. My plan is to expand the economy. We have to dominate the world with respect to technology, and we have to create a bigger, better future, prosperity for Americans going forward. This is number one thing on my agenda, but everything is in the context of coronavirus. And how do we do that? We have to create jobs, we have to innovate, and we have to put together how America will succeed in the next few years going forward, because we are at a tipping point, Rahim. You talked about corruption too. The corruption in America is wearing us down. The corruption of our politicians who are morally compromised. How can you chair the House Health Subcommittee, take all the money from big pharma, and then pass legislation that increases the price of healthcare? It's morally wrong. It's a conflict of interest. And you know what's happening, Rahim? Our American people do not see this. They have been disconnected, but it's time to wake up. It's time to wake up and realize the issues that are pertaining to us and what we need to do to solve these types of problems. Because if we don't, the next generation, which is your generation, will not have the type of opportunities. We will all be struggling to find jobs here in America. And I think a lot of the onus lies upon the career politicians who have been there for like 2 decades, 3 decades, and they are asleep on the job. All they want is to preserve the paycheck. Why do we have 86-year politicians in our Senate or in our House? What's going on with that? What problems are they solving? Is America looking at what problems they are solving? They're not. So the big money in politics, we need to yank it out and throw it away because it's wearing America out, and all the challenges that we are seeing with the post-pandemic world, is post-COVID-19 world, is because of our politicians who are completely inept and they are corrupt. And this is the reason why we need people like Jamal Bowman, who actually won in New York, because this is the breath of fresh air that politics needs to bring. And we have some key challenges that we're going to address. Let's talk about the manufacturing. We were left at the mercy of China. You know, it's a national security issue. We need to bring manufacturing back. We don't have PPEs. I mean, how tragic it is that? How tragic is it that our frontline workers are essentially do not have masks and they kept falling sick again and again and again? It's a tragedy. We couldn't protect them. They are the frontline warriors and we fell flat. You look at the what's going on with medication. 95% of the generic drugs come from China. 80% of the raw materials comes from China. It's time we carved out a new path. Let's talk about infrastructure. You know, education. We need to roll out online education. Right now, there are disadvantaged schools and they're not able to teach their students. They were not able to teach their students. And I don't suspect that they will be able to teach their students in fall, because I don't suspect we are going back to a normal world for quite some time now. So how do we fix that? We need a stimulus package. We need to invest. We also need to invest in transportation, because every city, you know, we are losing our standing in the world because the urban economies are being impacted. Look at Silicon Valley. There are people leaving Silicon Valley. They're going to other communities in the United States. What would happen when Silicon Valley loses its secret sauce, where we are not able to keep the jobs here? You know, we have something very, very special going on here. So anyway, I can keep talking about the post-COVID-19 world. There are some big challenges we need to solve. We also need to define a pandemic preparedness plan. Congresswoman Anna Eshoo said in one of her op-ed pieces that I've been working 15 years for pandemic preparedness because I knew it would happen. Hey, what happened to that? What are we talking about? Pandemic preparedness, really? But that's the inept nature of American politicians. We need to bring back together. We need to solve these types of problems, and we need to define a better future. Now let's talk about the economy. You know, how about defining healthcare analytics systems based upon electronic medical records that will provide us the data sets in terms of which population is vulnerable and which is not, instead of shutting down the economy in a pandemic or a biowarfare, which is likely the future. How do we address it differently? You know, this is where innovation needs to happen. This is where we need younger leaders to emerge, take charge in the United States and make change happen in a positive way, Rahim. That's the reason why we're running.
That's another beautiful, I like how you tied everything up. And I think I'd like to call you the candidate of the future. I think that's a good way. I think that's a good description of you.
The future is November 3rd, 2020, Rahim, because we're going to shock the world. We're going to win this race.
Hopefully you will. And this is you've touched on this. This is the last.
Rahim, I'll tell you one more thing. You used the word hope a few times. Hope is not a strategy in Silicon Valley.
I like that. Action is, I'm assuming. Action is the actual word.
Look at the long sign at the back. What does that tell you?
I'm sorry?
Look at my long sign behind me. I
can't read it that well, actually. I'm sorry. What is it? Getting things done?
It's getting things done. Exactly.
Getting things done. That's fair. That's the mind of the IT man, to get things done. I like that. That is fair. That is true.
But you know, Rahim, you know, it's loosely called IT, but you know, we are the innovation mecca of the whole world, right? What goes on here is amazing.
Of course.
But when you take that and apply that into the world of politics, the results are pretty amazing. Someone like me, a minority person of color, getting the most votes in the 60 years election history of Saratoga. Why does that happen? Because people are very open-minded here. You know, they love these getting things done approach, and they can clearly see how I differentiate myself from people on my city council who have never held a job ever. You know, their view of the world is completely skewed. Nothing wrong with that. But I think I got a better insight in terms of what the challenges are and what we need to do to solve them. And this is the reason why we differentiate ourselves from all these career politicians who are locking up seats in Congress and not willing to let go. Time to walk into the sunset. And if you don't, there'll be a Rishi Kumar somewhere, there'll be a Jaman Bowman somewhere who's going to take charge and make it happen, right?
Of course there will. I think that's what makes your campaign again unique. And the trend of, right, it isn't just people, right, who in Silicon Valley. I know I've interviewed at least people who are doctors, scientists running, right, who have bring total different, and again, who want to end 20, 25, 30 years of congressman or congresswoman, their reign essentially. And because they bring a whole different insight that how we see politics, how we see politicians is done. We don't want the establishment. We want, again, someone like Rishi Kumar who can get things done. And the last question I have for you, I would love to keep talking to you, but I like to keep the episodes in as concise as I can. You touched on this a little, but what are your biggest concerns for the future, at least when it comes to both parties, respectively?
Yeah, so Rahim, I think what's going on when you look at the stimulus package, both the parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, they are bickering like children. They are fighting over like what? In a COVID-19 world, you should be collaborating, you should be solving problems, and you should be figuring out, how do you get money to the mom and pop shops? The stimulus package failed completely. I'll give you an example. The EIDL loans, the SBA website was crashing in the early days. And then you look at the PPP loans, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. They made banks the mediators. And the banks decided they only wanted to support their top customers. So the ones who were not the top customers, the ones who really needed the money, they were not able to get the money. And this is a problem which is systemic in America, between the haves and the have-nots. And if we don't address that, Rahim, we will actually see a social revolution on the street. Right now, it's Black Lives Matter. It's going to be a different revolution that will play out, which is what Senator Bernie Sanders talks about, right? And I can see the future if we don't address that. So we need the parties to collaborate. I'm a California Democrat, and I'm a delegate of the party, of the California Democratic Party. Mm-hmm. I'm also an executive board member of the California Democratic Party. That's an election that I've been running since 2013. And currently I'm the e-board. And, but I don't see it that I need to follow the herd mentality. The herd is going down a cliff. Doesn't mean that I'm going to follow them. I call it not going left, not going right, but going forward, people-centric values. We need to morph the values of both the parties. We need to completely morph the values because there are systemic problems with both the parties. And that's the change I would like to see in America. We need a new set of leaders joining both parties. In a red district, I would like to see a different energy, a different ideas, different leadership jumping in and challenging these establishment politicians. Let's take them out. Let's bring together a new breed of politicians who will be able to address the challenges of the people. And if that happens, the two-party system will be just fine. If it doesn't happen, there will be a revolution. Something is going to happen because people cannot deal with this anymore. The change is imminent. The change is imminent. That I guarantee you, Rahim.
That's a great way to put it. Mr. Kumar, I really appreciate you being on the show with us. I really do. I enjoyed talking to you. I'm glad you let me talk for a little bit. I at least ask my opinion. I really do appreciate that, but there's nothing more to that.
Rahim, I'll leave you with one thing. Our campaign This is about reigniting a simple promise that will send shockwaves throughout Washington. When you forget the special interest and the corporate money and focus on the people, the possibilities are endless. And I would love to see a lot more folks like me running for office and taking back America, because America deserves so much better compared to the career politicians we have. And their only thing they're interested in is their own paycheck. That's it. Do they really care about the interests of the people? This is why we need to make change happen in America. Rahim, thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate the chance to sit down and talk to you. And you are going to have an amazing trajectory, Rahim, because you are doing an amazing job.
Hopefully. And I guess sorry for calling you Nolnango. I didn't mean it to offend you. That was just what my parents were saying. But I love I love the work that you're doing. November 3rd, I will make sure I have family in California who have heard about you, who live in Silicon Valley, who have heard of you. They will definitely be voting for you. And I really appreciate it. And if you ever want to come back on the show or anything, or want to chat about anything, please, you have my email. Just email me. And that's that. I really appreciate talking to you. Okay.
Let's do this again. November 4th, 2020.
Hopefully November 4th, and you'll be very excited. But some technical stuff. Just make sure you just send me the recording so I can edit it and then put it on my end at least. And then I have a little promo for you. I'll do that as well. Whoever you can send it to me via Google Drive. That's not that important.
So Rahim, you think you can beat my TikTok video at 454,000? You think?
No.
Oh, come on, Rahim. You should say yes. You should say yes.
I'm gonna try. I mean, I'm gonna try. I have my interns around the clock looking for ideas. The whole point is like something that's unique and funny at the same. Because I've posted some things. I've gotten like 5,000, 10,000 views. But here's the thing of it though. I like to do this. I get so many, whether it's extreme conservative responses, saying the most ridiculous, absolutely the most ridiculous, like George Floyd was a conspiracy by the government, like that level. And it gets to my head sometimes too. So that's one of the reasons why TikTok has been a little off for me. But
I'll give you a suggestion. Take one of my videos from TikTok, turn that into a promo for yourself, and then add that YouTube video or whatever you have as part of that. Maybe that'll get you the 500,000 hits of this particular podcast.
Okay,
so wait. You got to move here, Rahim, and get this special brand of thought process, right, or something.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. I usually just post the clips of this. I would post, but then it's just the small content. I'll figure out. But how is your family and you're dealing with this? They're good, or?
Well, we are all good. Everybody's hunkered down, so it's it's all good. We are actually pretty busy right now. I mean, it's a brutal schedule. My wife works in the world of tech also.
Yeah.
And but she has been involved with every campaign. I would not have won my 2014 election if it was not for her. And she is kind of like keeps me grounded, keeps me on track. And that's the reason why a good thing is going to play out on November 3rd, 2020. By the way, Rahim, January 4th, 2021 is the swearing in. So make sure you mark your calendar. We'll see you in Washington.
Hopefully. I do go there a lot. My brother lives there. So if you're there, I will be very excited to see that. Can I ask you one last, I apologize if you're busy. I just have one question for you. This is not this is just from me. You mind if I ask it?
Go ahead.
Okay. You're running, obviously, and because I love politics. I want to have a future in politics. I want to go into politics, right? I want to go as soon as I graduate college. So and you're a member of the California, Democratic Party. So what would it be, at least for as a first timer, right? I don't know. I'll run for something small, obviously, but would it be how challenging at least was there? Do you have any tips for me for running, right? Because I got to convince my parents not to be a lawyer or a doctor. I got to, that's going to be another hard conversation, obviously. Yep. But, any tips for me running? Because you're experienced. So any tips for me if I were to decide?
Yes, definitely. In fact, that's the topic of a podcast I'm doing tomorrow with the Woke Desi, WOKE Desi tomorrow. And this is exactly what we'll be talking about. So I would love to answer your question, Rahim, but when you watch that podcast, it'll provide you some great insights in terms of how someone like you can get going in the path of political service, community service.
Okay, I'll
You'll
put that. That's better. I'll do that then. All right, Mr. Kumar. I really appreciate you. Thank you so. I really thank you so much again. And then have your staff or interns send me whatever the interview, and then I'll get it posted on my site, and then you can repost the Instagram. You guys can repost it, and then we can help each other with that.
sounds great. Sounds great. All right. Thank you, Rahim, again. Really good talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Enjoy the
Thank
day.
you.